Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the September 24 SANDAG Mobility Working Group meeting. I will now call the meeting to order. Before we move forward, I would like to ask our interpreter to introduce themselves and go over how to access interpretation.
Good morning. Announcement for interpreter. To use interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on interpretation icon world and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on the mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the backgrounds. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out the headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares a la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Now I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region has historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups: the Kumeyaay, Diegueno, the Luiseno, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the justices of the past. Now, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will ask our clerk, Michael, to confirm that we have a quorum.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We'll now take public and member non-agenda comments. Per SANDAG board policy, the amount of time allowed for each verbal public comment is determined based on the number of agenda items, the complexity of those items, and the number of persons anticipated to offer comment. This allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we still have a quorum. Based on those factors, for today's meeting, each member of the public will be allowed 2 minutes for their comments. Clerk, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak?
We have no public comment, Chair.
Okay. Today, we have a few staff announcements. Cecily, please go ahead.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Several staff announcements really quick, but we'll just let me know if you have any questions. So in addition to our land acknowledgement this week, we also want to take a moment and recognize and honor California Native American Day, which is this Friday. It's an annual state holiday observed on the 4th Friday of September. California Native American Day is a time to reflect on and honor the culture, history, and contributions of California's indigenous peoples. This day was officially designated in 1998 to celebrate the rich and diverse tribal cultures that have shaped and continue to shape our state. On this California Native American Day, we extend our deep respect and gratitude to the tribal nations in San Diego County, whose heritage, wisdom, and resilience continue to guide and enrich us all. And coming up next week is Clean Air Day on October 1st, hosted by the Coalition for Clean Air. At SANDAG, we encourage the entire San Diego region to take the pledge and get moving for clean air by walking, biking, carpooling, or riding transit on Clean Air Day. By replacing even one solo trip in a car, you can make a difference. You can participate by visiting sandag.org/cleanairday to take a pledge. And then you can take action by walking, biking, carpooling, or riding transit next Wednesday. And MTS and NCTD are offering free transit all day. And spread the word to your coworkers and friends so that they can take the pledge and participate as well. There's a toolkit on sandag.org/cleanairday with materials if you're interested. Next, you all have received an announcement via email, but again, we want to thank you and members of your staff who submitted comments on the draft 2025 regional plan. We have been actively coordinating with several of you to address the comments that came in, but if you are interested in discussing further, we can set up virtual meetings upon request. And so to request a virtual meeting, please email regionalplan@sandag.org as soon as possible. And in addition to the individual briefings, we do have a presentation going to the board this coming Friday, but we'll also be holding a joint working group so that we can kind of formally share the latest update in response to all the comments we received. So that is just scheduled. We'll be getting out official invitations very shortly. That will be October 9th, Thursday, October 9th at 9:30 here in our boardroom. So look out for those invitations. And next, two more. We've been collaborating with many of you on the RAPIDS technology concept of operations. SANDAG, in partnership with Caltrans, MTS, NCTD, and the local jurisdictions, are planning 6 new rapid routes through San Diego County to improve transit performance and advance regional goals for sustainability, mobility, and equity. In order to develop a toolbox of those supporting transit technologies, the SANDAG Strategic Technology Implementation Team is currently conducting a capability maturity assessment, and that will help us understand the current and future readiness of the agencies across the region to help implement these new technologies altogether. So we're currently seeking input through a survey. You all received an email about this yesterday, and that will help us identify the existing institutional, operational, and technological environment baseline and where we aim to go in the future with transit technologies. So we're looking for input from staff who are familiar with rapid planning, and transit elements or technology projects, and team members that would be from transit planning and operations, traffic engineering, your planning teams, IT teams, management teams. So please help us get that to the correct people in each of your relevant staff. And the survey should take no more than 10 minutes, and we are asking for responses by Monday, September 29th. So thank you so much for your help with that. Our last announcement, I'll hand it to Jennifer.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Jennifer Williamson. I'm the Deputy Director of Mobility Planning here at SANDAG. And I wanted to give you an update on our Flexible Fleet Grant Program. We are getting ready to go to the Transportation Committee. October 17th is when we'll go. We've updated the criteria, and I wanted to give you a sense of what these updates are, and we'll go into a much deeper dive at the Transportation Committee, but I know this has been of interest to you. So we have $4.5 million of funding eligible. We've redefined what the projects are eligible. So a new pilot would be eligible, and that's a service that is not currently operated or has not operated in the past. A new category is what we're calling a modified existing pilot. This is the continuation and modification of a service that is currently operating or has operated in the past. But the key note here is that it has not received any federal funding. So if you have received federal funding from SANDAG to operate a project, that project is not eligible regardless of any modification. So we also have existing modified pilots that are eligible for funding, and those would be funded at $500,000 max. So if you're a new pilot, never done anything, you could apply for up to $1 million. A modified pilot would be eligible for up to $500,000. Applications require verifications that federal sources have not funded the programs. Eligible expenses are limited to operations, turnkey planning, outreach, monitoring software cost only. We've removed capital cost as an eligible option in the grant program, and that's staff's recommendation. And the reason for that is that it's a very complicated project and it would add quite a bit of expense to the oversight of the project. We've also refined the DBE requirements and local permitting requirements. So as you look through that grant application, it's going to be really important that you pay attention to that. We've added a combination of microtransit and NEV, so you could have a hybrid with both services or both types of vehicles operating. And then we extended the funding to December 31st, 2029. So that'll give us some time to really evaluate the program. That 2029 date is very strict because we have funding limitations that will allow us to fund beyond that time period. So again, this is a highlight of the different changes in the funding program. It will go to the Transportation Committee October 17th. That's not where it'll get approved, though. We'll go October 27th or October 17th, and then we'll get a recommendation from the Transportation Committee that will then go to the board on consent, hopefully on October 31st. Once it's approved there, we can finally get going with the program. So we're super excited. And I wanted to let you know that we would like to hear from you. If you have any questions, certainly reach out to us, but want to give you that heads up because I know everybody's been interested. We do have a question in the back there.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jennifer. I was just kind of curious, do you have like a draft, like fact sheet, anything that we could take back to our respective teams just for their awareness so we could be prepared for the upcoming hearing schedule?
Yeah, so once we post the agenda item for the Transportation Committee, we'll send you out that fact sheet. I'm just giving you a little snippet of a heads up here. Yeah.
Thank you. We will now move on to today's, I'm sorry. Do we have any other questions or comments from any of the committee members on any of the announcements? Okay. All right. Now we'll move on to today's consent agenda. The only consent item is item 3.1, approving the June 2025 meeting minutes. Do we have any comments from the public?
We have no public comment, Chair.
Okay. Any comments from working group members on the minutes? Okay, not seeing any. Could I have a motion to approve?
I make that motion.
Okay. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hands. All opposed? And any abstentions?
That's an abstention. Is that from Carlsbad? If you could speak in your mic if you're abstaining.
It's
City of
from
Carlsbad abstains.
City of Imperial Beach abstains.
City of Oceanside abstains.
And the motion passes with those abstentions.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to item 4.1 on the agenda. We will hear from SANDAG Senior Regional Planner, Kirsten Yucatel, and Manager of Financial Programming and Project Control, Michelle Smith, on the rescinding of California's Clean Air Act, or CAA, waivers.
Good morning, Chair and working group members. My name is Kirsten Yucatel, and I'm a Senior Planner in the Environmental Compliance Group at SANDAG. And I am the project manager for our transportation and air quality conformity efforts for the regional plan and the RTIP. I'm here with Michelle Smith, Manager of Financial Programming and Project Controls, to provide you with an update on some recent conformity developments and challenges. Every 4 years, as part of the regional planning process and as part of our regional plan proper, we have to demonstrate that the regional plan meets federal air quality standards. This is a requirement to be eligible for federal funding and to have the final conformity determination approved by the federal agencies, by EPA and FHWA, once the plan is adopted. We do this by using a specific model that has been developed by CARB and EPA called the emissions factor model, in which we take our ABM modeling of the proposed plan and use the MFAC model to project emissions for specific years. And then we compare those emissions to the allowable emissions. We submit that determination, as I said, at the end, once the plan has been adopted, and then we have approval. California has a special prerogative related to air quality. It can request a waiver from EPA to set more aggressive air quality standards and adopt more aggressive programs for emissions reductions than the federal standard. California has done this many times. And once those waivers are approved by EPA, they are incorporated into the emissions factor model. Recently, in mid-June, the Trump administration rescinded 3 specific waivers, and in doing so, effectively invalidated certain components of the emissions factor model that we use to demonstrate conformity. CARB and EPA are currently working on adjustment factors that will correct this and will bring the MFAC model into consistency with this federal action. But at the moment, there is no available MFAC model without these waivers integrated into it. So this has created some challenges for us and every other MPO in the state, 2 in particular. One is timing, because we can't control when CARB and EPA will complete this work. It is projected to be completed by the end of the year. The second is that our emission rates will go up under this corrected version of the emissions factor model, and we don't yet know if that will create challenges for meeting our federal standards. There is a process let me back up. Our current conformity determination is valid through the end of January 26. There is a process if we are not able to demonstrate conformity for the 2025 plan by that time, where we would enter into a lapse grace period, and there are certain conditions and restrictions that would obtain. And that lapse grace period lasts for 1 year, at the end of which there are more severe consequences for not being able to demonstrate conformity. We are actively working with our federal and state partners to try and find a path for demonstrating conformity for the 2025 plan, and also for positioning ourselves to address any conformity challenges for the 25 RTIP and eventually the 27 RTIP, work on which will be done next year. And I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to discuss the RTIP efforts that we're making.
Thanks, Kirsten. So how does this affect the RTIP? So for those of you who aren't aware, the RTIP is the 5-year Regional Transportation Improvement Program that we monitor that is federally mandated. And so as part of the RTIP, we have to conform to conformity analysis too, which follows the regional plan. So if the regional plan falls out of conformity analysis, then the RTIP will as well. So as Kirsten had said, we will have that grace lapse period. During that grace period, there will be no amendments to the current RTIP. And so we would not be able to make changes to scope, funding, anything related to programming in the RTIP. We'd still be able to obligate federal funding, and you'd still be able to draw down Transnet funds during that time, but no changes could be made. We are still working with Caltrans and FHWA on if they would allow certain types of amendments, but we have not received clarification on that as well. Earlier this month, staff sent out an email to all the cities and local agencies to notify them of this issue. So we were asking all the local agencies, Caltrans, as well as our own SANDAG staff to take a really good look at what you have programmed in the current RTIP. Make sure that it's up to date, make sure that it's valid. We have opened up this current formal amendment to last a little longer. So it will actually close October 24th. So everybody has time to kind of take a look. If you need to go back to your city councils and get approval for your program of projects, we've allowed for that additional time as well. And We're hoping that this will be resolved and we won't have to run into this issue, but we are allowing this extra time for this extra look at your projects to make sure that they're accurate and up to date in case we cannot make any changes after January. And then as for the development of the 2027 RTIP, that will be on hold until we receive further clarification because it is a statewide issue. So the whole state would be placed on hold for development of that as well. And with that, I will turn it back to the chair.
Sorry, I was busy writing notes. Thank you very much for your presentation. Do we, Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
We have no public comment on this item, Chair.
Do we have any member comments or questions? Yes.
Can you repeat the date that we have to have our amendments ready?
Yes, they're due October 24th.
And that would include the resolution from the council?
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. This was a discussion item only, so we don't need a vote. We'll now move to item 4.2 on the agenda. We'll hear from SANDAG's Associate Financial Analyst, Richard Radcliffe, on the FY 2024 Transnet Local Streets and Roads Program Annual Status Report.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Mobility Working Group members. I'm Richard Radcliffe, and I am, as she said, the Associate Financial Analyst in the Financial Programming team here at SANDAG, and I'll be presenting the results of the fiscal year 2024 Transnet Local Streets and Roads Program Status Report. Before I get into the presentation, I just want to briefly thank those of you that are in this room that contributed to the completion and the submission of the surveys. We do understand that this is a big ask, and we really appreciate the amount of detail that was provided in the responses. This item is an information item, but our hope is that this item can be used as an opportunity to facilitate a conversation around how we can improve the process for collecting the data so that we are consistent and also not creating more of a burden for us and for you. And with that, I will, next slide, please. Okay, so for a brief overview on why we do this report each year. There were recommendations in the fiscal year 2012 triennial performance audit that proposed that SANDAG take a greater role in monitoring and reporting the performance of the local streets and roads program. Then in 2013, an annual reporting process and template was developed, and the annual reporting process began. The collection effort for the fiscal year 2024 report kicked off at the November 2024 Mobility Working Group meeting, with survey collection concluding in spring 2025. The survey in Excel format was sent out to all 19 jurisdictions, including the 18 cities and the county. And the FY 2024 survey was made up of 4 main sections. You can find a blank example of the survey that was sent out in your agenda packet starting on page 18. We first asked jurisdictions to provide some contact information. Then section 1, the first of the main sections, asked for projects that were completed in fiscal year 2024, which covered the period from July 2023 through June 2024. Then section 2 asked for projects that were scheduled to be completed in fiscal year 2025, which covered the period from July 2024 through June 2025. Then section 3 asked for any concerns and or challenges related to spending down local street and roads balances that you may have encountered or dealt with over the course of the fiscal year. And finally, section 4 asked for any other comments or notes that the agency may have had. Jurisdictions were also able to submit links and photos for projects that were referenced in the report. This slide here shows graphics summarizing the quantities of the project categories and the project types that were reported on in section 1 of the survey. This section again asked jurisdictions to list projects that were completed in fiscal year 2024. For project category, the infrastructure category represented the largest quantity of projects, with maintenance coming in with the second largest quantity. And for project type, the most frequently reported type was roadway. And section 2 asked for projects that were scheduled for completion in fiscal year 2025. And similar to section 1, infrastructure was the project category with the largest quantity, and roadway was also the most reported project type. These are some of the common themes as far as challenges experienced by the different jurisdictions. I tried to order them in order of prevalence, which ones appeared most frequently in there. Staffing was definitely a very common one, including turnover, which is also related to the loss of the institutional knowledge regarding the Transnet program. Also significant time being spent on educating current staff that may be getting repurposed to work on the Transnet program, and staffing capacity. Also issues with contractors that may have slowed progress, inconsistencies in data collection and presentation, as well as resources across different jurisdictions. We know that some are smaller than others. Higher construction costs and bids. Some uncertainty surrounding how the economy will impact planned projects for fiscal year 25, as well as contractors becoming increasingly reluctant to bid on projects that have burdensome and complex regulatory requirements. And that just about does it for my presentation. I've included my email here in case anybody wants to reach out. Just one final note before I hand it back over to the chair. For the fiscal year 2025 report, staff will likely be coming back to the November 2025 Mobility Working Group meeting to make an announcement and kick off the process for that, with completion of the surveys expected in early 2026. So stay tuned for more information on that. And with that, I hand it back over to the chair, unless there's any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Do we, clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
We have no public comment on this item, Chair.
Before we take member comments, our Deputy Director of Mobility Planning, Jennifer Williamson, has some comments.
Excuse me. So as Richard said, we really like to begin a discussion about how we do the reporting for local streets and roads. If you'll go back to the slide that showed the concerns and challenges, we're hearing that, you know, there's a lot of issues around how we're getting the information, and we'd like to hear from you. If you have, you know, examples of how you think this could be done better, if you have thoughts around how we're doing it currently, we'd just like to engage in this. Otherwise, we're going to continue along the same road. And based on all these challenges, it seems like there should be another or a different, better, possibly easier way to do this. So I'm going to open it up to you to give us your thoughts and let us know what you think.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Jennifer. Sorry, before we get to the discussion, I was just wanting to get a clarification, Richard. Where does this information, like, what does this feed into, just for, you know, like big picture wise, like this survey gets done and then what is done with the information, just so I have clear understanding of that.
This is the first year I've taken on this effort, but it's my understanding that this report sort of kind of holds jurisdictions accountable for what they're expecting or planning to do with the Transnet funds. Do you want to elaborate?
So just for some clarification, this came out of our triennial performance audit for Transnet. And so as part of the RTIP, when we develop it, we ask agencies to, which was part of the the audit as well, what are you going to do with the Transnet funds? Because as the agency who gives the Transnet funds to the locals, we have been asked what happens to those funds once we give them out, because we really have no oversight of what you guys spend the funds on, what the locals spend the funds on. And so the audit came back and said, okay, we need some sort of report that says, what are you going to spend the funds on? And then once you spent it, did you actually do what you say you were going to do? And so that's where this annual report comes in saying, okay, now that you spent the funds, what did you actually do with the fund? What did we get for this investment? And so that's where the genesis of that came from.
Quick follow-up to that. So sorry, Roy. I just wanted to, so then presumably then the concerns and the challenges that have been identified by the survey takers then would be something that we take on, we collectively, obviously you all, to address in subsequent years? Like if this is what we're seeing in terms of the results, then ideally we'd be addressing those challenges in the next fiscal year, correct? Does that seem right?
Yeah, that's part of that's why in the report, there's a narrative section to say like, these were our challenges and that's where this came from. And that way, when we start the next round of audits, the auditor can say, okay, the cities are really struggling with providing the information because of XYZ. So is there a way we can, like Jennifer says, can we improve the process? Can we have a better mechanism for reporting it? Is there something we can do that takes a lot of the burden off of staff to put this together?
And just a final thought on that would be, I do kind of, I think understanding the staffing shortages and the work overload, I think a big thing now is the ability to have additional funding sources to be able to address challenges. I think any jurisdiction and any agency is like constantly looking for funding. So I think that's an area where if any of these, challenges are addressed in the next fiscal year, then it'd be great to see funding backing that, because that's, I think, where we all hurt the most. Is just an initial kind of overview thought on that. Thanks both.
Okay. Did I see someone's hand up down here? No? Okay, sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olga Reyes from the city of El Cajon. I'm actually covering for Mario Sanchez. Forgive me if this is totally out of scope, but when I read these concerns and challenges, when I read the first three, it sort of seems that that's becoming more of a staffing issue. So when I read the first three, all I can think of is SOP, standard operating procedures, and having these in place so that when there is a turnover or when you're educating or mentoring or teaching another staff member, if you have these in place, I kind of feel like even if there's a turnover, there's always going to be a document maybe that forms a basis and can be updated as the years go by. Again, this is addressing the first three because the first three sort of seem like it's lacking maybe in a standard procedure.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members? Yes.
Hi, Nathan Schmidt, City of Carlsbad. Those are great suggestions. I was thinking along the same lines, just having some type of, educational opportunities, to get staff up to speed on the Transnet requirements, SOPs would be great. In regards to the inconsistencies in data collection, could you expand on that a bit more? I'm not understanding what that is. I thought it was pretty clear in terms of the data collection process, but maybe if you could.
Sure. Yeah, it's basically different jurisdictions sort of similar to the resources in the sense that they have different ways of conveying their information or summarizing the data and information. We did provide sort of kind of narrow like restricted fields to provide certain types of things so that in the end we could summarize the information that was provided to us. But the way that they describe the type of work that was completed, there's not really like a predetermined format that we kind of prescribed for how they provide it. So the amount of detail, maybe more for certain jurisdictions. And, we kind of understand that that's sort of tied to the resources. We know that for certain jurisdictions that have large numbers of projects, this task can take a lot of time. And I noticed too that it can kind of bounce around to see, depending on the jurisdiction, while they try to figure out who the right person is to fill it out. So that's something that when I was comparing to the previous year's report, you could kind of see similar trends there as well. So maybe that's an area that we can try and improve, maybe kind of standardize a little bit more in a way.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like it goes along the same lines of just unfamiliarity with the Transnet program. So just establishing clear SOPs would be lumped in with that. The rest of the items, a lot of those are just out of our control, unfortunately. So I think just having that clear process apparent to the cities would help a lot.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and Phil Trump, City of San Diego, echo what Nathan's sharing about the standard operating procedures. I think for us, I noticed our list is pretty thorough, but the narrative is missing, right? So maybe it's part for us getting the right manager. I mean, I think we're a diverse city. I think this relies on our management analysts and transportation department. Obviously, we have engineering, capital projects, city planning. So maybe, at least I'm speaking for City of San Diego, but maybe it relates to others is bringing in the mobility working group member involved or just the manager in that team to fill out more of the qualitative information, if that's helpful in terms of where this all goes down the lines.
Yeah, and if I could just say on Phil's comment there, I've been kind of considering how we can, basically we started with a list to each jurisdiction of the currently active projects in the RTIP. And so there may have been projects that were not listed or that were listed that were not relevant. But also in the case of like the City of San Diego, there's usually multiple city CIPs under the one RTIP ID as well. So I think maybe it could be worthwhile for us to include additional fields or columns or space for like maybe have the RTIP ID, but then also have an area where you could list the different CIPs underneath and maybe tie more of the specific detail to those. Maybe that would help with the detail provided in the narrative, something like that. So we'll definitely revisit how we'll take this feedback into consideration and try to incorporate it into the next survey for the 2025.
I think Roy at Caltrans.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just kind of procedural. I know you guys are doing a survey and a report, but I guess I'm missing the intent of the report because.
Roy,
You have
can you
your
speak
mic.
in the mic? Yeah.
Sorry, am I not loud enough? I usually don't have that problem. So I'm just having trouble understanding the intent of the report because these are concerns, but it's not like performance. You know what I mean? Like the performance of the report. So was there like an issue with what was like the assets that were originally supposed to be done, like 2 miles of bike lane, but because of these issues, we were only able to deliver 1 mile, or, is there a nexus for that? I'm just trying to understand like more of a performance measure take on this.
Yeah, so you said the P word, performance measures. That's something that we've been trying to work on collaboratively for a while. But yes, so as mentioned earlier, when the RTIP is developed, the city's put together a list of outcomes and outputs and saying, here's what we're going to do for the next 2 years. And then they provide annually what they've done. And then when the auditor comes in, they're going to combine it and say, okay, did you say what you were going to do? And if not, we need to see why. So does that answer your question?
See, like this was for the projects. I just didn't see where it's like this was what was promised, and then this was.
Oh, you don't have that? Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
that's one of our challenges
Okay.
that we're struggling with as
So
well.
that's why I was asking. Sorry about that.
No, that's
Thank
fine.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you for giving staff some feedback. Again, this was a information item only. And so we're going to move on to our next slide item, which is our next mobility working group meeting will be on Wednesday, October 22nd at 9 a.m. And just to reiterate Cecily's comment on October 9, there will be a joint working group meeting here at 9:30 a.m. On the regional plan. Okay, Thank you, everyone, for coming, and see you next time.